Welcome everybody, thank you for tuning in. This is a Killer Whale 90 production, and I'm your host, Killer Whale 90. Today, for our entertainment, I'm going to be unboxing this box and revealing an elegant but outdated locomotive. So, let me get to that. And nothing says it more than our usual kitchen knife, which is going to be going through this box. Let's begin. Don't want to get this place dirty. Okay, the sides weren't too bad. Let's get this whole top. Before I go any further, just want to keep in mind, Walthers. Just keep that in mind. Ooh, the fun kind of. Yes. And here is the box itself. I'm impressed by this because this is a cover for the Locomotive box itself. I like that. And now to get this out. And here we have it. A Mantua. So obviously this is old school. So it's not exactly new, it doesn't exactly have the newest technology, but it's still a very beautiful locomotive, which is why I got it. I see the modern day Mantua boxes have age 14 to adult. This one has age 6 to adult. I find that interesting. Maybe this was a safer locomotive, but I highly doubt that. Anyways, let's open this up. Styrofoam, and finally, upside down, certificate of authenticity. The Pennsylvania Railroad 442 Atlantic. And only, not sure how many of these were made, but this is number 428. This isn't the 460, which is another limited edition they made. But this one's still a limited edition. Very important stuff right there on how to grease and oil stuff, otherwise you'll be poorly maintaining a locomotive, and you do not want that. Take care of your engines and your engines will take care of you. Now, let's take it off, and there it is. If you could see it, it's a pretty locomotive. Let me get it out of the box. And there we have it. Pennsy Atlantic. It's beautiful, right? I'm going to put this down on the track so you can get a better look at this. Be right back. Okay, I'm back, and here is the locomotive in better detail. A beautifully elegant Atlantic is what I like to call it. These were pretty popular when they were first came out. This one here came out in 1993. Luckily, I just recently got this brand spanking new. It was just never run by whoever previously possessed this engine. I always thought that Mantua should have came out with these more recent, like they did come out with their 060 Camelbacks, for example. Because I always see these engines go out on bidding wars on eBay. These Mantua Atlantics are really popular, and might be a big move for them. But now that it's model power, but either way, someone out there has to make a 442 Atlantic of the Pennsy. I think they'll be pretty big sellers, almost as big as Bachmann's K4 or Broadway Limited's T1. But either way, there's none right now, and the only engines you can get are these Mantua ones, and if you're lucky like I am, you'll be able to find one like this in such a condition that you're the first one to actually handle it. And this is quite an experience. It is very very interesting like that, and it's a very sharp looking engine. Although, you know, it's a Penzi locomotive, it's very distinctive, and that's pretty much the main reason I got it, is because it's a really beautiful locomotive. I do have a few other Atlantics by Mantua. They're not exactly the smoothest runners. This locomotive is 19 years old, and with that you have older technology. This does not have DCC ready at least, or even a smooth motor in it. This is pretty old, so it's going to be rough and scratchy, but I have no problem with that. I just slowly bought this locomotive because of its looks. But, as we all know, many things in life, looks can be deceiving. But either way, I'd still love to get this locomotive up and running, and pretty soon I'll be able to show you the first movement, which I'd actually like to do right now, as you will be continued right after this quick message. Welcome back. And in keeping traditions alive, I always like to put my new locomotive on this track and test it to see how it runs. My prediction, it's going to be pretty scratchy. This engine is, like I said, 19 years old, and the thing is, it has never run before. So, you put those two together, I don't think it's the greatest combination, like a brand new locomotive that was only made within the last 2 years, as opposed to this thing. But either way, a first run is a first run. And let me see how it is. Here I go. Not bad. Not bad at all. That's a lot better than I expected. Let me bring it back. Old or new, with every locomotive that just ran for the first time is obviously not going to be its smoothest, and don't expect the locomotive to be like that all the time. It will need to break in. My recommendation is to run the locomotive at least for 30 minutes at about 70% throttle, and that is without pulling anything. And once that time is over, this locomotive is pretty much, well, good to go. Now, as far as this guy itself, let me bring the camera a little bit closer here. There we go. One of my favorite things about the locomotive already is the fact that it had these knuckle couplers. The other Atlantics I had came with the horn hook. Not exactly realistic, and it wasn't fun replacing them with couplers like these, but it's all for the better. Makes you understand the locomotive itself more, and how to take apart and put back together any component of a model engine. Now, I'm pretty sure I haven't actually seen them on this thing like you just saw, but based on the other Atlantics I have, these marker lights should operate. It's kind of sweet. This is one of the few locomotives I know that's so many years old but actually has marker lights that operate, and this engine was for a decent price. It's not like this was more of like a high end. I never thought Mantua was to be a high end kind of maker. They do make distinctive locomotives of sort of a very similar prototype, but they're not full on detail. But in their Camelbacks and their Atlantics, they're pretty good. But more into their Pacifics, Mikados, and a few others are very generic, and they're not that great looking. But this thing has pretty much filled the void of that. Interesting enough, it also has spokes that do have striping on it. I do like the pinstriping all over it. Let me give you another round of it. It was less than a week ago that I purchased this thing. I am very lucky I did not get into a bidding war. In fact, nobody bid on this locomotive. And yet I got it for a very decent price. Yes, bidding wars are crazy for these Atlantics. I always see them at least 20 bidders. And worst of all, the price goes outrageous. Anybody is willing to pay for one of these things, go for it. But I got lucky to find this thing brand spanking new, and for a low cost, that I was the only bidder. So that's pretty much it for this guy. I may have not given too much detail about the locomotive itself, but I probably will show an upcoming video of it operate. It's pretty sweet looking, I'll give you that. Whether you like Pennsylvania locomotives or not, you have to admit this is a pretty decent looking engine. One of the most highly best looking engines out there. It's definitely a franchise engine, I'll give you that. Alright, thank you for tuning in for another Killer Whale 90 Productions. And I will be heading out. Thank you, and have a good one.